Hello, my name is Christy Hartman. We're here today to do some gel printing. I hope you're ready for this. Gel printing, it's a great activity. It's extremely fun. You use a gel plate. This is my 8 by 10 inch gel plate. I'm going to show you a couple other sizes today just to acquaint you with the idea of gel printing. Gel printing is basically mono printing. Mono printing means one print. When you get one print, that means that when on a gel plate, when you pull your print back, you'll have one good print. Frequently you will get a ghost print. However, with the printing I'm going to show you for this project, we're not going to talk about ghost printing. We're just going to talk about layered printing. A gel plate is actually made by the Jelly Arts company. It is a non-toxic, patent-pending gel material. You can see it's pliable, it's easy to manipulate, it's very squishy. It does have some mineral oil in it. So when you start gel printing, you need to gel print on a craft mat or some sort of non-porous material. You could use a cookie sheet, that would work. Anything that mineral oil in your gel plate is not going to leach out onto your surface. You could, on a non-porous countertop, you could easily gel print. Now, this is the Jelly Arts company. This is their brochure. This is for the 5 by 7 plate. If you purchase, I'm not saying when you purchase, but if you purchase a gel plate, keep this material. It tells you how to take care of your plate. It tells you the basics of gel printing. It also on the back gives you a quick little demonstration, and it shows their website, which I will have included in your PDF. They come in this clamshell. Looks just like this. Your informational material should stay inside your clamshell. Your jelly plate comes like this. It comes with 2 protective mylar sheets that go on either side of your gel plate. This is the 5 by 7 again. Notice how this one's been used, but it is basically pretty clear. The mylar sheets protect your gel plate. You don't want to lose these. When you put your gel plate away, open up your clamshell, place your mylar in, place your gel plate down on top of the mylar, take the second sheet of mylar, place on the top of it, close up your clamshell, and you have taken care of storing your gel plate. This clamshell will keep your gel plate safe. You won't get any nicks or any gouges in it, which anytime that you print, those are going to show up on your print. Here's a second gel plate. This is a 3 by 5, excuse me. Here's a 3 by 5 inch plate. Notice this one has not been used as much. It is perfectly clear. When your gel plate comes brand new from the Jelly Art Company, you'll see that they're clear. Mine that I'm going to use today is not clear. Mine has been well used, it has been well loved, and you'll notice it's got quite a bit of paint residue on it. I do not clean my gel plate in between painting activities. I leave these because these little bits of paint, when I print, these are going to pull up onto my next print, and I like the look of that. You may not, and you may choose to clean your gel plate. When you clean your gel plate, you can clean it with baby wipes. Just wipe it off, cleans up perfectly. You can also use clean water. I have used dish soap on mine, but I would use a very mild detergent or a very mild soap on it. I would not use anything abrasive at all on it. And I just scrub it with my fingers and clean it off. But as you can see, I don't clean mine very often. Once in a while, these edges will get really crusty, and you'll just peel them off. It's not a problem. You do not have to purchase a gel plate to do mono printing. You can mono print on a gel plate that you can make. You can make your own. There are now some recipes out on the internet for traditionally gel printing was done on a Knox gelatin sheet, where the artist who built the gel plate made it out of a recipe with Knox gelatin. The problem with those is that they degrade over time. So you have to put them back into the refrigerator once they warm up. Otherwise it's going to just melt into, and you're going to have a pile of goo. I did notice on the internet not too long ago that there are now some permanent recipes where you can make your own gel plate. Take a look at those. You can find them on YouTube. It would work fine. The other option for gel printing, which is really not gel printing, but is certainly mono printing, is using your craft mat. At the end of today's printing session, I will show you how to use your craft mat. Now, you might be asking yourself the question, why would I spend the money for a gel plate if I can just use my craft mat? Well, your results are going to be slightly different with a gel plate as versus with a craft mat. But the type of printing that we're going to do today, you can basically use either or. Personally, I love to gel print. I love my gel plate. I have a few of them. I use them in multiple different activities. Give it a try, see what you think. This is the Santa that we're going to work on for this project. The first part of this initial video is just strictly for the gel printing, and we are going to gel print his coat and hat. You can see from the gel printed piece in the background that it's kind of a variegated mottled look. We are going to use 3 colors of paint to do that. We're going to print multiple copies of these prints so that you have plenty of product to be able to use for your gel printed coat. And I always do multiple copies no matter what, because I find that I want more than one copy for a variety of purposes. So here's the Santa on the canvas. Here's the Santa on the ornament that we're going to print. Now, I gel printed his coat. Of course, he's smaller, so I needed a smaller amount of space in my paper to be able to cut him out of. But both of them were printed in exactly the same fashion. I hope that you can see lots of uses for this Santa. Towards the end of the videos, I'm going to show you another Santa that I will have made that is on a card. So take this Santa, put him on different surfaces, put him in different applications, and I think he's going to be very useful. We are going to use basic printer paper. Nothing fancy. We're not using printing paper, although you could if you want to. It's just heavier material. I find that my printing paper works famously for this application. You can see here that I printed one piece of paper. Here's the Santa red, here's a little bit of the gold, here's the electric pink, and it's all modeled together in a very variegated fashion. So when you start cutting out your Santa, you can see where I cut out part of him here. You are going to be able to position your Santa on your paper so you get exactly the right mix of colors that you want. If you've decided that you don't want to gel print, then simply paint your Santa's coat. You don't have to gel print. Paint it with the Santa red and shade and highlight using all of the instructions, and your Santa will be just as spectacular as the people who have gel printed their Santas. We're ready to print. So what we're going to do is I placed 4 different paint colors onto a palette. This is deli paper. Deli paper is the same exact paper that they use in a delicatessen. You can purchase it at Costco, or I'm sure that Walmart carries it. It's a thin, waxless, and I say waxless because you don't want any wax on this, otherwise your paint won't pick up on it. I'm just going to use it for 2 things today. First thing I'm going to use it for is part of my palette. Second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use it to help clean up my plate. Now, that's kind of a misnomer because I just said I don't clean up my plate. I do somewhat, and you'll see how I do somewhat, and we'll talk about that as we get going. I've used 4 paint colors. Snow White. This is just simple Deco Art Americana acrylic. You can use any type of acrylic paint to gel print. You do not have to get printer's ink, although you can use printer's ink on these. You can use any type of paint you want. The Deco Art Americana works well because it's not as highly pigmented as some of the other paints are. Also, you use a lot of paint when you're gel printing. especially the type of printing we're going to use today. Now, when I say that, understand that I don't mean you're going to use an entire bottle of paint to print with, but you're going to use more paint. So you might not want to use your really, really expensive favorite brand of acrylic. You might want to use just your basic Americana paint. Now, I paint with Americana paint most of the time. That's my brand of choice. So I'm using Americana paint today. But if you are an individual who paints with a different quality of paint, especially the Traditions paints by DecoArt, you're going to find that what it's going to do is those highly pigmented paints are going to discolor your gel plate. I know that because I've used Traditions on mine, and that's why mine has this greenish blue tinge to it. Again, it doesn't hurt it. Does not hurt your gel plate at all. So I've placed my paint onto my palette. I'm going to set this off to the side. I'm going to use my fingers. Now, if you don't like having your fingers in paint, then get some surgical gloves. Surgical gloves will help keep your fingers clean. You won't have to feel paint on your fingers. So I'm going to place a small amount of paint right on my finger, and I'm going to just smear it onto my gel plate. What I'm doing is I'm building up layers of color to form this texture. Notice how I wiggle my finger back and forth. All I'm doing is whatever I develop for texture here will print on my paper. So I'm going to take a little of each. Notice I did not clean my finger in between applications. Wiggle that paint. Now, why did I use the white? I wouldn't have had to. I can easily take my pink over into my red in a variety of locations. Even add a little bit more white. Notice how all that paint on my finger is now transferring and mixing with that white paint. And it's making an interesting texture and an interesting contrast. I am not at this point in time yet going to add too much of the Splendid Gold. I'm just going to go with this just so you see the basic idea. Okay, now I have this. I think I need a little bit more here. That's pretty good. I don't have to fill up my entire gel plate. I'm going to wipe my finger off. I still have paint on my finger. It's okay with me. Going to take my piece of printer paper, and I'm going to place my printer paper wherever I want to pick up the texture and the color. And I'm going to use this area right in here. So I'm going to place my paper down right into that area, and then I'm just going to gently, I'm not pressing very hard, just smoothing my fingers over that area. And I notice I'm letting the paper rest on the paint because I want that paint to adhere to my paper. Then I very gently pick up my paper, and I have now printed the first corner of my gel print. Now, obviously this is wet, so I'm going to flip this. I'm going to pay attention. Do you see where I have the paint here? I'm going to print up in this upper section. I'm going to try and keep this paint out of the paint, but if I can't, it's not a big deal. And I'm going to just pick up that paint in that upper section, moving my fingers wherever I want the paint to adhere to my paper. And I have kind of an interesting texture. I'm kind of liking that. That's building up the colors pretty well. But here's a problem. This paint is just going to keep transferring back onto my gel plate because it's wet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this one aside. I'm going to let it dry. I'm going to pick up a clean piece of paper and pick up some more of that paint off of my gel plate. I'm going to pull that paint. I'm pressing this down just a little bit harder because I really want that paint to adhere to my paper. Gently pull it off. My paint's starting to dry a little bit on my gel plate, so I'm not getting quite as much texture. You see these empty spaces? Don't worry about those. We'll fill those in a minute. I'm going to try and pick up this little corner right here. Got a little bit of it right here. Can you see that? And I'm going to show you a little trick. See how I folded this over like this? I can now place my paper just on that wet paint, trying to hold that open. I'm going to put my hand in there. It's a little awkward, but I can do it. And I pulled up a little bit of paint right in this area. Now, I'm going to set that aside, let it dry. I have all of this kind of beautiful goo, which I really like. I can do a couple things. I'm going to show you, this is the cleanup stage. I'm going to place this piece of deli paper. Deli paper is great. You can use it on cards. You can use it in your collages. I could have used it on Santa's coat. The only problem with this is that it's transparent. So whatever I put, or whatever I collage this over the top of, it's going to become somewhat semi-transparent. So I chose not to use this on Santa's coat, but it makes a great little cleanup space. I have all of this great looking texture and color left here. I am not going to clean it up. I'm simply going to put my finger back into my Santa red, and I'm going to wiggle it. And I'm going to try putting it in a couple different spots. When I put the paint on, when I apply the paint, I don't worry if it's terribly thin. I don't want really deep, thick ridges of paint. But I don't also want tremendously transparent areas. Now this center right here is becoming somewhat transparent. May or may not print well. I'm not going to worry about it at this point in time because I'm going to put some paint right over the top of it. Now I'm coming in with my electric paint. Notice how I'm using a little bit different arrangement of my paint. I put the reds on either side. Have a little chunky there. Let's get that off of there. Have a little different arrangement. Still I'm using my finger to kind of spread my paint out. I'm going to come in with a little bit of white, and I'm just going to... And it literally, you feel like you're playing, your finger painting. It's fun to make these beautiful textural patterns. And this time I'm going to come in with a little bit of Splendid Gold right on my finger. And I'm going to add just a little bit of touch of gold. I find a little bit of gold works great. Too much gold becomes overpowering. I'm going to add a little bit more right down here. Okay. I do think I need a little bit more white, so I'm going to put a little more white. Now, these colors all work beautifully together. If I had colors that did not mix, I would use my white to separate my colors. So if I was printing, for example, with an orange and a blue, which would not mix at all, then I would want to use that white to separate my paint colors. So, coming back to this one, which had this little section of white right in the center. I'm not going to worry about that right now because I still have this area that's wet, and I don't want this to blend with what I have down there. So instead, I'm going to try and pick up paint in this area. I think I'm going to go right here. Again, place my paper, pick up that paint. Notice how I don't rush this process. I really give that paint and that paper the opportunity to adhere. Ooh, love that. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Now, this is wet. I'm going to want to try to be careful with it, although if I get my fingers in it, it isn't going to matter because I can always print over the top of it. So let's pick up this. And I'm just going to move my fingers over the top of all that. Slowly pull it up. The reason I say slowly pull it up is because you want to get any of that extra little color that's stuck down on here. You can see some little teeny tiny bits of red that are showing up, and those are the pieces that are dried on the gel plate. Okay, set this aside. I'm going to pick up a third paper. I'm not even going to mess with that first one I did yet because it's still pretty wet. All right, I'd like to print 3 pages. 3 pages allows me lots of material as far as for my Santa's coat and material for future projects. Now I'm going to just place this right down on the center of my gel plate. I'm going to rub my hands right over the top of that and see what I clean up. This is what I would call a cleanup print. Gently pull that up. Oh, this is kind of a happy surprise. Love this. Now I can show you. If you can look right in this area, right here, you can see there's little bits of orange that were on the gel plate before. Can you see that? Can't see much of it? Well, trust me, it's there. All right, got one more spot right here. Pull that paint up. Now, I've got 3 prints going. Don't know if you can see these particularly well. Just going to lay out 2 of them. Here's the third. This third one, this area is still a little wet, but I can work around that when I start printing. And I'm going to continue the process. All right, so I have filled in some more of this, and I have some empty spaces, and I definitely wanted to show you how to fill in those empty spaces. So basically I have this area right here that I want to fill in. So I'm going to take that, and I'm just going to kind of adjust my paper so that I know right where those areas are. I'm going to place that down onto the paint. If I smear the paint, it doesn't matter. This is such a random process that it really doesn't matter. I also have this empty space right here. I'm going to try and pick up some paint on that. Always pay attention to where you were printing, although if you print over the top of one of those areas, it isn't going to matter. Well, you're building up these layers. These layers are going to make your paper very sturdy. It's going to be very strong when you start decoupaging Santa's coat onto your background. It's going to work brilliantly. And I've pretty much accomplished what I wanted to. I filled in those areas. I still have a few areas in here that are empty. I'm not going to worry about those because I can go back in with paint and just fill them in. Okay, I think we're getting to the point now where I need a little more paint right in this area. So I'm going to use a little bit more paint. I'm just going to go with my pink and my white. And I'm going to fill in right here. Perfect. All right. So now I have this mess. I'm going to take my cleanup piece. I'm going to lay, this is that deli paper that I used before. I'm going to lay it down on top of my gel plate, and I'm going to rub over the top of it and see how much of that I can pick up. Now, I'm pressing pretty hard down into those areas, as I want any of that kind of semi-still damp paint to adhere to this paper. And when I pull this off, I'm going to pull very slowly. I got some of it up, not a ton, but I got some of it up. There's a little bit more right here. I'm going to try and pick up. And let's see if there's anything more that wants to come up. Now, some of you are going to look at my gel plate and be horrified because it's such a mess. Personally, I think it looks great. I'm going to leave it, and the next time I gel print, I will have all of this beautiful texture that will want to adhere to my gel prints. All right, now I promised you when we started this video that I was going to show you how to gel print without a gel plate. And I promised you that you could use your craft mat. So we're going to print with this craft mat. Is it going to be somewhat different? Yes, it is. Will it be equally as satisfying? Yeah, probably. There are some mono printing plates out there on the market which are, they're kind of a plastic plexiglass. They work very well. I know that Stampendous has one. You can get one from them. If you have a piece of glass, if you have a glass plate, see my hands? They're kind of messy. If you have a glass plate, or if you have a piece of plexiglass, you can do the same thing, but again, it's not a pliable surface. It's not going to work exactly the same, but I think you're going to be pretty happy with the results. So let's take my paint, put it right down onto my craft mat. My craft mat is kind of repelling some of that paint. I'm not going to worry about that. That would make a pretty cool texture. And I'm going to place a clean piece of paper right on top of that. I'm not going to press very hard over the top of it because it doesn't have that pliable surface underneath it like a gel plate would. I'm going to see what I get. Oh, that's cool. I like that. See where the craft mat kind of repelled some of that paint? Made for a very cool texture. I'm going to grab one more piece of paper. See what I can pull up. I got some. So now I can clean this up with clean water, can clean off my gel plate if I want to, which I'm not going to, but you might want to. I hope this is intriguing to you. I hope that you find this to be kind of an interesting opportunity to try something new, try something different, have fun with it. There is not a right or wrong way to gel print. Keep that in mind. This is not an activity where you have to know a certain series of brush strokes to be able to complete the project. This is totally random, totally on your own, totally whatever you personally feel at the moment. So I hope you give it a try. Hope you have fun with it. I'll see you in the next video.